welcome to another episode of Home Tech. I'm Seth Johnson, and as always, joined by Jason Griffin. Jason, how's it going, man?
I'm doing all right, Seth. You know, mourning some sad news over here.
Saddest news ever. Everybody, get your drink in hand.
You might want to sit down for this.
Yep. Sony is ending the Betamax program.
It's
done.
Cue the sad music.
Yeah. Oh, I can do that. I'll edit that in. There we go. All right. So, yeah, after 40 years of evidently being on the market and probably about 30, maybe 35 more years than most people even knew,
exactly.
Sony is officially killing off its once VHS competitor, the Betamax. And I've actually seen these in the field. Not necessarily in homes, but like in businesses and some like recording studios. They'd have Betamax players sitting off to the side, collecting dust. But they were there, and I guess evidently you could still buy them up until 2002, and you could still get parts and whatnot, I'm sure, after that. But you can still get tapes up until March of next year.
Oh, thank God.
So yeah, and cleaning tapes.
Funny
You're going to
story.
need those cleaning tapes. Yeah.
I really thought at first this must be like an article from The Onion or something, like a satire piece, but nope, it is actually true. So interesting to know. I had no idea that there was still any sort of Betamax, initiatives going on at all. So it was definitely funny to hear that story. We've got what we think is a really great show lined up here. This is actually a guest by the name of Joey Kolchinsky, and he's with OneVision Resources. And Joey, we've been actually kind of talking to him back channel for a while and looking forward to getting him on the show. OneVision is a technology management company, and hopefully, Joey, I know you're listening, and hopefully I'm summing that up correctly. You'll obviously, as a listener, you're going to hear all about what he does. Very interesting model, very, runs kind of counterintuitive to what a lot of smart home professionals are doing these days, and the way he's set up to provide his services. Very unique and really an interesting conversation that, in my opinion, speaks to a lot of the trends that are going on in the smart home that we talk about all the time on Home Tech. So really, again, was looking forward to the episode, and I think it really lived up to my expectations. So before we get into the conversation with Joey, we've got kind of two quick stories we're going to touch on here. And Seth, the first one here is an article that you had pointed out, home automation by the numbers, and tell us about this one.
Yeah, this is kind of funny. There's a couple of funny things in here, and interesting numbers that are being reported through. So it looks like Parks and Associates did a survey, but it is summarized here on CE Pro, and we'll put a link in the show notes. And there's a couple of goofy numbers in there, but one of the funny things in here is there's 24 competing wireless / power line protocols that are on the market today. And I'm going to start reading some of these, and we'll just fade it out. So Dolly, Echelon, Ethernet, KNX, MBus, Modbus, X10, Insteon, LTE, UTMS, CDMA, Lightweight N, Thread, Zigbee, Z-Wave, LoRaWAN, InOcean, Ant Plus, Bluetooth LE, or BTLE, is it like it to be called, NFC-7, and RFID. Who cares?
Indeed. Who cares? Yeah, these conversations come up all the time. And I think there's some validity to them, in terms of, I guess, trying to simplify things on the technical level. I think it applies more to like the manufacturers, probably more of a pain point for them in terms of having all of these competing standards and having to figure out, kind of which one to hitch your wagon to. From where I sit as, more of a technology enthusiast and professional, and not a manufacturer or a programmer. This conversation I kind of gloss over every time. I don't think necessarily that we're ever going to get to that one standard to rule them all. I don't know that that's necessarily even what we need. Maybe more so what we need, again, from where I sit, is like technology that makes it more seamless, so that I, as an end user, consumer, or professional, don't even have to think about it. And really, that to me is kind of the gist of every time I hear these conversations come up.
Yep, I agree wholeheartedly, because who cares how this stuff works as long as it works? That's all anybody cares about. And it's got to be reliable, yes. And, I understand why there's so many standards here. but this is one of those things that just serves confusion for people. 24 different standards. I mean, really, this is what we've gotten to. And let's cue the XKCD comic, that the 3-pane comic that's famous for.
Yes, we'll have to
everybody knows it. I'll
notes.
put it in the show notes if you don't know about it. But
HomeTech.fm/87 if you want to check out those show notes. The other statistic in this article that I found interesting was that 32%, and that is the percentage of U.S. broadband households living in homes that are 3,000 square foot or more and have at least one smart device. So again, 3,000 square feet or more with broadband, then you've got 32% one, quote, smart device. Now, the first thing that jumps to my mind, though, is what qualifies a smart device. You know, is that a smart TV? Because to me, like, that's not really a smart device. And so I'd be curious to know how they're qualifying that.
Yeah, it doesn't. It says thermostats, light bulbs, but it's also said including thermostat, light bulbs, cameras.
Right.
So they could be including a smart TV. But I mean, really, 1/3 of the market, 3,000 square foot. That's really not that bad of a number. I think that's encouraging, at least, that, you know, there is interest in this product, and there is interest to make. There will be interest and more money pushed to make this product better, I think. So that's good stuff. That's all good stuff.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you know, I think that kind of segues perfectly into one of the other stories here that we wanted to touch on really quick before we get into our interview with Joey. And that is, you know, we're talking about the penetration of smart and intelligent devices into the home. And one area of the home that we're going to continue to see more of that in is the kitchen. And we wanted to give a quick shout out to a good friend of the show, Michael Wolf, who recently had the Smart Kitchen Summit. And I know that's an event that he's been putting a lot of time and a lot of effort into planning. And from all accounts that I've been able to hear, sounds like it went really well. So we wanted to give a quick plug to that.
Yeah, our goofy scheduling last week, we didn't put it in the last week's show because it just couldn't get our heads wrapped around it and how things were going out the door. But and I was traveling on the day that this went down. He actually did a live video feed and a live event feed, which would have been really cool to watch all these sessions on. But fortunately, he did record them, so you can go to the website. We're going to put a link in the website at smartkitchensummit.com. There's a video link there at the top, but you can head on over to the show notes as well. There'll be video links to all the videos, and just check them out, because there's a lot of really cool things that happened. There were products that were announced. There's really really cool stuff that for the kitchen that you may not know exists. Like little. One of them was the like the Keurig for beer, which I thought was kind of interesting.
Awesome.
Yeah. Takes a little longer because it's beer, but you know, like I would love to have one of those, and to stick it in the kitchen, make beer, and come home and have a cold one.
You got my attention.
Yeah, exactly. I figured it would. So we also had a patron. We want to give a shout out to Stuart Burgess. Donated over the $5 level, and one of the things we do, if we don't do sponsors on the show, what we do is we just ask if you want to throw a $1, something as little as $1 a month into the tip jar there. You can head over to HomeTech.fm/support, and it links out to our Patreon page. Stuart was nice enough to throw a couple bucks our way, and we definitely want to give him a shout out and say thank you, Stuart, very much, and to all of our Patreons. We're getting really close to that live show, Jason.
Yeah,
really close.
It's getting close. We're gonna have to figure that out here in a hurry, but. Yeah, we do really appreciate it. Wanted to send a big shout out to Stuart for the support, and just again reiterate our thanks to everybody who's come on to become a supporter of the Home Tech Show. And once again, if you want to learn more about that, just go to HomeTech.fm/support, and you can kind of get the full rundown there of what really that's all about. So thanks again, Stuart. We appreciate it. And I think from there, Seth, let's go ahead and kind of get into this interview. Once again, we had Joey Kolchinsky on. He's from OneVision Resources, and they're a company that's taking a very different approach to the smart home and providing services and technology management is really kind of their goal. And I think it sounds like they have a very interesting setup and are really able to position themselves uniquely in the smart home market. I thought it was a great interview, so we look forward to sharing that. And without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into our conversation with Joey. Hey, Joey, welcome to the show. How are you?
Doing really well. Hey, Seth. Hey, Jason.
Thanks so much for taking the time to join us. We've really been looking forward to having this conversation. I know Seth and I had come across some articles of yours back in CE Pro, and we had talked about a couple of them. One, I think the title being "We Get No Respect" or something along those lines. You've done some work in CE Pro, articles that we'll link to in the show notes. But most importantly for tonight's conversation is you've got a company called OneVision that we think is really interesting, and we've been looking forward to having you on and chatting about. But before we jump into that, for our listeners out there who may not be familiar with you by name or know kind of what you're about, let's start off with having you give just kind of a brief personal introduction and maybe a little bit of your background prior to the OneVision company.
Sure. Prior to OneVision, how I got started is really this actually all started for me when I was a teenager. And I had my first client as a teenager. He took me under his wing. He groomed me into kind of becoming, at the time, what was best known as a technology concierge. I remember one of my first gigs was to actually just rip all of his CDs to MP3s, because this was 2001 and he bought the first iPod that came out. So for $15 an hour as a teenager, it was actually pretty good. But from there, I kept supporting him and taking care of his technology, but never quite, thought it would be my full-time job. Went to school for economics and finance, joined Wall Street as a junior analyst with a fund here in Boston. And after 2 years of that, kind of realized that the day-to-day grind of the public stock market wasn't really my thing, and fell back on what I knew, which was, effectively technology support. With a few phone calls, that initial client, who I was still taking care of over the years, introduced me to my first several clients, and that's how I got started.
That's great. I love the background and kind of the organic roots of the company. And so talk about how that led to, kind of the current state of OneVision. What is OneVision and your current role in the company?
Sure. So, the most important thing for me when I fell back on what I knew in 2008 and started doing this was don't allow this to become a one-man consultancy. Don't allow this to become a business where, it's key man dependent on me. I really wanted to build something that could be successful and stand on its own and allow me to, lead a life beyond tech support. And I was also a believer in the fact that there's no way anybody could have great tech support if they were dependent on one person. That flies in the face of the definition of good support, because one person is not scalable. And so I really fell back actually on the years of guidance and mentorship from my first client, who, there are a few kind of formative situations with him that really guided a lot of the decisions that were made for OneVision. One example is at the very beginning, he told me from the start, don't mark up on hardware. He had actually just had a massive home automation project done. It was his first one. It was a fully distributed video Crestron system with Runco TVs and distributed audio and video, touchscreens in the walls. And it was a classic example of a Crestron system, in the last decade. And he actually hired me to sit there for a week and figure it out and then teach him how to use it. Right. So one of my first kind of experiences in home automation was an over-engineered, pretty complex, not user-friendly system that somebody had to, after paying a couple $100,000 to have it installed, had to hire somebody for $15 an hour to sit there, learn it, and then kind of synthesize it into a usable format. And those were kind of my formative experiences around home automation and how it was really affecting the person who had just bought this technology. And it wasn't a great experience, right? And the integrator wasn't there to see it. The integrator had already left and gone on to the next job. And in that experience, he said, don't mark up on hardware, because how can I trust you with all of your recommendations if you're marking up on hardware? I'll pay you for your time, charge me for your time, but, pass through the costs of hardware. And the third experience that was actually really formative for me was, I remember he had asked me, and I still have all of my emails from back in the day. So I've got a few 100,000 emails over the years, and I go back and I look at this one in particular frequently. And he had asked me, can you get me a new computer, or can you recommend a new computer to me, was actually what he had asked. And I I gave him a typical geek speak answer via email where I gave him a matrix of functionality and prices and options. And he spit it back at me and he said, that's not at all what I asked for. And actually, if you look at the email, it is what he asked for. But he clarified and he said, what I wanted you to do was, use your knowledge of me, who I am, my budget, my needs, my personality, get the computer you think is best, transfer the data, set up a time to show me the computer, train me on what's new, and get rid of my old computer, clear off the data, and get it out of my life and move on. And that was this first experience of kind of servicing technology in the context of this guy's lifestyle, right? And that has been a hugely a core part of our business. It's delivering technology management and support services in the context of your lifestyle. Because if it's not done in the context of your lifestyle, then what's the point, right? For all of these clients with the means to make their problems go away. So, depending on I was guided by all of those experiences and the idea that I never wanted to be key man dependent on myself, and set off to scale a high level services business.
Very cool.
Which is now OneVision.
Very cool. What a great what a great mentor to actually have to get that kind of feedback, right? Like that's not something I wish some of my clients would have done that over the years, right? Because sometimes you send a quote off and you just don't hear anything back, or you send a comment back and you don't know what has happened to them. They've gone on and found somebody who told them, what they wanted to hear. But you've gotten those little tidbits right there from that particular client were golden. I mean, that's something you have to work years to get, and you got it like right off the bat, which is great.
I got it right off the bat, and it actually kept coming because I was this young kid who was cute little Joey, who every time I'd see my clients, I had a new, there was a new girl I was dating, and everybody wanted to hear the stories. And it was usually like the sort of, I tended to connect more with the moms in the house, and I was cute little Joey, right? And I still charged cute little Joey rates at the time, right? So, it was really easy for people to spend an extra couple hours to just talk and build a relationship. And I frequently, when I look back on kind of what were the formative experiences, it was the fact that I was this young, impressionable kid with my first client, willing to mentor me and take me under his wing. And also, my brother, who was 7 years older, and he was, incredibly mature and doing big things. And he's actually, a wealthy individual himself today, and is representative of our entire client base. And he would guide me in every one of my decisions and every one of my emails. I still remember that the first 3 years of my professional life, every email I wrote went through my brother. And my brother edited every single email. And this is something I do with our company today. Like, communication style is a huge part of what we do. But, you mix these factors together, and that's how you get this, really interesting experience that leads to basically what I am today, which is this young guy with still effectively boundless energy, able to build a startup in a difficult industry that is custom integration and technology management.
Right.
So I hope I don't run out of steam before we figure it all out.
Yeah, you and me both.
It's yeah, that's right. Right.
So you touched on it a little bit, but who are your customers at OneVision?
Sure. So our clients, without a doubt, are people who value experiences over technology. They don't believe in the idea of technology for the sake of technology. They generally see technology as probably an unfortunate necessity these days, because they've all been burned by tech in the past, and they are almost wary of it, and are definitely not DIY. They're not do it yourself. They're probably stress sensitive over cost sensitive, and they're willing to hire an expert professional service like ours to create an awesome experience for them. And awesome not being defined as booming technology and booming speakers and super high quality video, but awesome being defined as stress-free.
Right.
And those clients who value that and see that in our service as the value add, those are our best clients and the simplest ones to bring on board.
It sounds like you have a bunch of regular people as clients, actually. You know,
a bunch of regular
exactly.
people.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean,
right.
we sit here and talk each week about different brands and things that are going on, standards and HDMI and HDCP, and I'll get a call from my father, who's probably listening. Hi, Dad. And he'll say, you know, I don't understand a word you're saying, but I like listening to you, so I just play it, which is great. You know, get
right.
some feedback from your family that way. But yeah, I can imagine most people who would tune into the show here and just kind of, you know, like you said, technology is something that's a necessity in their lives. I mean, most of the houses that I work in, technology is absolutely necessary. You wouldn't be able to turn on and off the lights in some of the structures that they make these days without lighting control systems.
Right.
So yeah, but the people that are buying the homes and living in the homes every single day don't want to have, you know, anything to do with knowing anything about those technologies. And like you said, they're not do it yourself. They're more the do it for me type crowd, right?
Right.
Yeah. So it sounds like you and I and Jason too probably service some of the same clients. What services does OneVision offer, and how are they typically priced out at? You've mentioned a couple of times that you don't mark up product, which is strange
right.
to hear in this industry, because we typically do run with some margin. So I'd like to hear you touch on that.
Right. Well, it's you know, it's really interesting what we've become. We realized that, you know, and we'll actually take a step back and I want to kind of recognize that home technology and home automation is actually just the quote unquote AV portion of the whole technology equation. Our clients hire us to actually manage all of their technology, and AV and smart homes happen to be just one small little blip in the timeline that is technology in their lives, right? They only build a home every few years, every 5 years, maybe 10 years. And home technology occasionally upgrades, but it's actually the personal technology in their life that causes the most stress. It's the computers, the iPhones, the email, calendar, contacts, photos, music. It's all of that personal tech. And especially as their kids are getting older, there's more personal tech. So we are managing all of their technology comprehensively, and there is no difference on our service team between AV and IT. It's all just technology, and it all needs to be serviced together. So with that in mind, the primary service that OneVision offers is managing your technology, right? The way that an enterprise has an IT service desk, and you know, no one in the enterprise in the office setting would ever buy a new computer without calling their IT desk and saying, hey, you know, my computer's slow, I think I need an upgrade. And then the IT desk buys them a computer, sets it up, and just like I described with my client, you know, almost 15 years ago, sets it up, transfers the data, and sets up a time and day to install the new computer and train them on it. Well, our clients don't ever touch their technology and upgrade or change their technology without calling us. We are that desk for them. We're that team. And it's that ongoing management that we offer. It can be little things like, the new iPhone is coming out, or the new Apple TV is coming out, and it can be bigger, more acute pains like I just shattered my iPhone and need a new one, within the next 30 minutes. And those are the kinds of things that we can deliver on.
Sure. Yeah. Sorry. Didn't mean to interrupt you there, Joey. I just want to jump in. The first thing that jumps to my mind when you talk about kind of the wide gamut of different kind of services and that you are providing for your clients, right? Like you said, it's not just about the AV or the smart home. It's about all of the technology in their lives, which could obviously mean a lot of different things to a lot of different clients. Talk about some of the challenges involved with running a business that can provide, that level of support. And I'm assuming you have to provide it very quickly, and being able to maintain that sort of level of support and run it efficiently and one would hope very profitably, right? So talk about some of the challenges associated with that.
So it's an excellent question, and apropos for us today because we've recently made some pretty significant changes. One of the challenges on the service side is we've learned, number one, most of the value in what we do is that we deliver an experience, and that we're building a relationship. It's not that we know technology. The fact that this is all technology support is like 10% of the product. 90% of the product is the fact that we respond near instantly, 365 days a year, with a team that knows the family. So it's the same people picking up the phone all the time, right? We're not outsourcing this to a call center. We don't have massive numbers of people. We have dedicated people for dedicated families. It's individuals who have an incredibly high EQ and are capable of walking people off the ledge, who are about to go nuts
Right.
over their technology. And this is one of the most expensive parts, it's people who know how to solve almost all of the problems, right? And can play tier 1, almost all of tier 2 support for any question that comes in. That's really, really expensive to do. You got to have somebody who's always trained and ready to jump at any phone call. So we're competing with the Bain Capitals of the world for the same tech guys they hired, handled their very demanding senior staff. We hire from them. We don't hire from other integrators or from the Apple Store. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, we've got some professionals who come from our colleagues in the industry, but a lot of our professionals also just come from outside the industry, and we have to pay top dollar to get them. And it's scaling that people portion of the business that's incredibly difficult. Recognizing, for example, that we will never have utilization higher than 55%, right? You look at the data that is presented in CE Pro, and it talks about hitting 70, 80% utilization. Mm-hmm. Okay, that makes sense for a smart home project when you have projects lined up one after the other, or it makes sense for generally like basic, really basic support. But when you have to respond, within 30 minutes to 100 phone calls and emails that come in every day from 50 families, you can't be billable 80, 90% of the time. You have to be sitting there twiddling your thumbs some of the time, waiting for that phone call to come in. And that revelation on our end, and then learning to bill for that bandwidth that we're just sitting there and not using, that was a big learning experience for us.
Yeah, I can imagine. Well, it's really interesting stuff. The other question that kind of comes to my mind when you talk about providing services across the gamut of technology and not just for the smart home or not just for AV is this convergence that we all, anybody who watches the industry, this works in the industry, knows that, IT and AV and entertainment and the smart home, they're all blending together. And I'm interested to hear your thoughts on that. I know one of your articles that we referenced earlier that you wrote for CE Pro kind of discussed this, and you've alluded to it in conversations that you and I have had offline about how IT and the smart home are converging. And in your opinion, how important is this for smart home professionals like a lot of our listeners and end users as well to be paying attention to?
I think it's huge. The IT, and it can't be overstated how fast these two have already converged, and how from our client's perspective, let's all step out of our own shoes for a second. From the client's perspective, there's no difference anymore, right? All day, every day, we get questions, for example, about about TVs, and people say, I don't get it. Why do I need all of this stuff? All of this stuff being a Comcast cable box, control for, a universal remote, whether it's Control 4 or Crestron or whatever, and a smart TV. And they're all saying, why can't I just have an Apple TV, right? And a lot of these people think that an Apple TV is also a TV, right? But you have to recognize that these are the people that you're dealing with, and this is the level of knowledge you're sometimes engaging with. They'll also say things like, why do I need a $5,000 or $10,000 enterprise camera system if I can just go get a drop cam? Why do I need a access control system, a card swipe, if I can just get an August door lock from the Apple Store? And so regardless of what we, the techies, think is the appropriate, better experience, and regardless if we can actually get the client to understand that, we need to first recognize that the client doesn't understand that most of the time. And they're just reading the side of the box and the marketing material, and they're buying into the what is effectively a lot of gimmickry on, you know, the off the shelf product box. And we need to start kind of not approaching this in such a condescending manner and say, oh, that stuff at the Apple Store, it's nothing, or you don't want to use that, you know, do it yourself, low quality stuff. We need to actually start respecting it for what it is, and that for most people, a lot of this stuff actually satisfies the overall need. And for the clients that we have, many of whom can afford a lot of the let's call it, you know, better, more capable, more stable, more enterprisey technology, they're actually not willing to buy it if it's at the expense of a general user experience that the rest of their community is able to engage in. A great example is, you know, we're always cognizant of the fact that our clients all day long are in situations like dropping their kids off at the bus stop or hanging out at a cocktail party. And if we're telling our clients to use some crazy complex technology and their friends aren't using that complex technology, and their friends say, oh yeah, I just have, you know, voicemail to email because I use this thing, and we told them to go use something completely different, they actually end up saying, geez, why did we hire these guys and pay them lots of money for them to give me something that my friends seem to have just figured out on their own? Right? And so, you know, again, it doesn't matter what the actual capabilities of this stuff is. One of the problems with our industry is that we need to really respect the context in which this technology is being used, being adopted, and being evaluated. And if we don't, then we run the risk of actually being pushed to the side, and people will just continue to try to do this on their own through a lot of the Silicon Valley IT variants of this technology, like Dropcam or August or whatever it might be. Right. So, you know, I just think it deserves a lot more respect and a lot less condescension from our industry, and our own clients will start to respect us for it.
Right. I mean, it kind of goes back to, you know, customer service number one. You listen to the client, and if yep. they're saying that, you know, this doesn't feel right or this isn't right for me and my lifestyle, then it's probably not the right solution for them. And I've seen that happen way too often, is where, you know, in our industry where we have companies or integrators who kind of put a product in on every single job just because. I think Jason was saying something last week. I think you called it custom for custom's sake or something like that. Yep. Yeah. Yep. And it's like most of the times you can get away with a cable box and just the Comcast remote. You know, you don't need anything more. But as soon as you know, I always tell my clients, as soon as you add something else in, it's just going to complicate your life. So we may as well do something easy. And right. They respect that. But I don't need to put in a $500 custom remote to sit on top of a cable box and a TV, because like you said,
well, and it makes it a lot easier to sell them something, you know, custom when they actually do need it. Right. Yeah. I mean, that's important too.
Well, I think the other thing, like the example I typically use is the Dropcam these days. You know, we know that what we're selling is an experience. And so for us, we don't let the smart home portion of our business drive the business, because to us, that's the tail wagging the dog. The dog in this case is actually your service team, your experience delivery people. And the tail is actually the smart home project that happens to happen once every 5 or 10 years. And we've learned on the service team, for example, this is after years of saying things like, wired is always better. Wired is always better. Always go wired if you can afford to go wired. And so you look at a camera system. You use like a wired access camera that's wired to a PoE switch that lets you even reboot that camera via the PoE switch, that then goes to a local, you know, NVR, and that might sync to some cloud recording service. And you think that's all dedicated camera enterprisey technology, and it's, you know, honed over years. Well, you then compare that to a Dropcam that's wireless, right, with a good, decent wireless network. And if you actually look at the support rates for 2 years over that, which we have this data because support is such a big part of our company, we catalog every ticket. The Dropcam situations in our clients' lives, like virtually zero tickets, virtually zero. I mean, it's probably like single-digit percentage points of issues across the board over the years. You look at our hardwired systems, they go down all the time. A camera fails, this, that connection stopped working, firmware update here caused that firmware to stop working, whatever it might be, right? A network switch stopped working, anything. But there's so many more layers in the enterprise system, despite the fact that it's wired. Those layers and integration points all create problems. Whereas the Dropcam, which is a fully self-contained unit, and the only layer that exists is its wireless connection back to the network, as a system is actually far more reliable and has a better app and a better experience. Yep. So every integrator listening, though, is probably going to say, geez, why would I install a Dropcam? Number one, I can't really make much money on it from a hardware perspective. And number two, it doesn't have all the options that other cameras have. I concede that is totally true, right? Like there are no outdoor options, no legitimate ones. There's no hidden discrete camera options for Dropcam. It doesn't exist yet. So let's have the conversation with the client and simply show them the alternatives and say, look, I know that you're saying you badly want a hidden camera, but let me show you that if you get a hidden camera, it's going to go down this path of very enterprisey tech that has a historical record of not being reliable. But if you can, not go the hidden camera route, and if you're okay with the aesthetic of a Dropcam and you can compromise there, you will get a far better experience overall. Which do you prefer? And the client says, I'll take the Dropcam 99% of the time. Because once they see what they're giving up for what they perceive to be their most important priority, but you've now shown them actually reliability, stability, and user experience is a bigger priority, they say, you're right. I would rather have that. And you need to somehow decouple yourself from the, almost, dare I say, kind of evil, negative, or at least conflicting incentive of marking up on this technology and say, you know what, I'm going to just charge a crap load for my service and my skill and my labor and ability to have this discussion and just pass the hardware through. I think that's one way to consider going, and you can actually create much better experiences that way.
Well, it certainly, I mean, this this business model certainly follows what happened in IT. I mean, we watched that market go from having actual margins in selling computer equipment and installing it down to actually having no margin and paying for the service and expertise of an expert to come in and make things right. So definitely seeing that happen, and it sounds like you guys are at the forefront of it. The things you're using for service really interest me because you sound like a huge customer service company, quite frankly, more than you are maybe an integrator or
nailed it.
So what exactly, I guess, can we kind of shift gears and kind of talk a little bit about that? How do you maintain? I've heard you use things like support tickets and a couple of other phrases through the conversation here. But are you using like software to maintain this relationship with your customers? How do you do that?
Yeah, so I'll actually start with your initial comment of the fact that we're a service company more than we're a tech company. I could not agree more. That is absolutely true. And it's so true that, even a few years ago, we realized we are a service company, not a tech company, and we actually launched a health division. So we have a team of nurse practitioners that manage our clients' healthcare the exact same way we manage their technology. Wow. And the idea being that OneVision is a company that's meant to professionally manage your personal life. The fact that your personal life happens to have something as complex as tech and needs a dedicated tech team, or something as complex as health and needs a dedicated health team, that's besides the point. But you are looking for a company that knows how to professionally manage your life. And that's what we do. So I completely agree. We're an experiential service company more than we are a technology or a health company. I'll get to some of the concepts that we implement internally to really deliver great service and how we've done that. But the other thing I'll say is that we even stopped being an integrator in many respects and have started to actually become more of a design consultancy than anything else. Because what we realized is not marking up on hardware in these big smart home projects was actually not enough to decouple ourselves from this conflict of interest that exists in being a design and build firm. And we couldn't get clients to at least the ones who are coming in on the smart home side and saying, hey, I heard you guys build great smart homes. And you say, yeah, we do. Well, they start comparing us to the other integrators, and they start treating us like a general subcontractor instead of treating us like the designer, kind of like tech architect that we know we really are. And so by decoupling ourselves from the integration and saying, you know what, we're going to do design only, and we will then actually work with you to bid out to other integrators. You don't need to use us. That has skyrocketed and worked incredibly well. And I actually think that might be the future of this industry, and that the way that a GC subs out to electricians and painters and roofers and things like that, and the architect designs the home with structural engineers and mechanical, electrical, plumbing consultants, MEP consultants, they will eventually have dedicated technology consultants and designers, not unlike Marsha and Wright in California. And they will, then manage integrators to implement what's been designed.
Sure.
And I think the trick to that whole thing to make it work is that the designer in this case needs to own the service, because one of the tricks of service is it's really hard to service these systems if you're not the one who designed it. Right.
Right.
And so what we're saying is we're going to own the bookends. We'll do the design. We'll do the service. The design will be priced on a per square foot basis. The service will be priced on a fixed fee basis, not by the hour. And we've now optimized those pricing strategies so that we have your best interests in mind. We are not trying to overcomplicate things. We're not trying to make you attached to us for any reason. We are simply here to create a phenomenal technology experience.
That's very interesting. I hate to point back to IT again, but that's exactly what goes on there. If you need to build a big data center, you contract with an expert who can put that particular project together. And of course, they don't necessarily have to do the work, and they can just sub that out and have the rack guys, the wire guys wire everything, and the rack guys rack everything up, and the computer guys build the computers that go into the data center. So yeah, it's very much following the path of IT. And I think here at the higher end, or I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to be at the higher end. And like you said, this could be the future of how our industry works. I'm sure that you have projects that are fairly small, because at the same time you're building on that service. You're not building on a price of a project.
Right. I will say that unfortunately at the moment, technology is something that is not at all standardized. Right. We have no we have no kind of infrastructure as an industry. Right. You look at any other industry like law or medicine. You look at medicine, for example. They have 911, ER, hospitals, doctors, MDs, RNs, and decades of kind of medical books and standards and procedures that exist, and regulation, right? And generally a healthy respect within our community that doctors are professionals in medicine and you should not self-medicate. Well, we don't have that in the tech space. Instead, what we have in the tech space is, in a very short time, tech went from being almost nothing in your life, right? Practically a dial-up modem and a fax line, to being everything in your life, but we have no infrastructure. We have no 911. We have no ER. We have no hospital. We have no standards, no regulation, no nothing. So you ask 10 integrators to look at the same scope, and you will end up getting probably 15 designs. That's insane. Right. But you ask one electrician to, ask 5 electricians to go look at one house and run the electrical wire for it. And you'll probably get, the same system installed in all 5 from all 5 electricians. Right. It's very standardized. It's very commoditized. And so lacking all of that infrastructure in the industry and lacking that standardization and commoditization, it's near impossible for any one company to own all of that without charging a lot of money, right? It just takes a lot of time to do this the right way. Otherwise, you have to start cutting corners, and you have to kind of, you can't afford to necessarily keep everybody trained up on all technology and twiddling their thumbs and waiting for phone calls. That gets very expensive very fast, and nobody's used to paying that, right? They're all used to doing this themselves. And Apple and Google, as much as they give us great technology sometimes, they're also trying to circumvent the need for professionals. They're trying to say, just go do this yourself, because that's great for their bottom line. So it's an uphill battle that right now is only I think won by people who have enough money to pay for this problem to go away. And I'm not, these people have small projects, but it's unfortunate that we can't find a way yet to properly manage technology for everybody. It's just limited to a subset of the population.
Yeah, definitely. I'm going to jump in here, Joey, real quick, and I think you might have been going right where I'm going to lead you again. I just want to circle back. We've covered a lot of high level stuff and big picture stuff, and I honestly think it's all been really interesting, and I think our audience is going to enjoy it. But I do want to touch just briefly. We don't have a lot more time, but all of these big picture ideas are great, and the philosophies are great behind them. But really, it takes a certain skill set and tools in order to implement it and actually make it work. So maybe just a quick kind of overview of some of the key tools that you use in order to enable your team.
Yeah. So this is one of my favorite topics of all, and I love engaging with other integrators on this, and it's something we consult on and really have a passion for doing. I think we probably have 2 or 3 apps and systems and concepts that we use internally that are sacred to what we do. I think recently the app that has probably rose to the top of our list is called Slack. And, I know Jason and Seth, you guys use this.
Oh, yeah.
But, it has become the cornerstone of our company. And, it's a messaging platform that has has brought the whole team together, communicating on one platform. It is dropped our email communication by probably 70 or 80% because, it's actually really weird when we now receive internal emails. Like nobody emails internally anymore. It's an incredibly inefficient way of communicating. Yet our communication has actually skyrocketed. And on the service side, how does that directly affect service? I mean, number one, it affects the life cycle of an entire client because all of our teams are using it. So way back at the lead stage, when a lead comes in from the website, that's announced on Slack, right? And all the people who need or even want to know about a lead are notified right away. And as that lead is engaged with and updated in our CRM, we use Pipedrive for our CRM to track our opportunities. It's updating Slack, and people are seeing in Slack, oh, we've talked to this lead. Oh, we've validated this lead. We've presented a scope to them and an agreement to them, and they've signed and they've won. And we get this kind of digital gong that gets rung on Slack, and everybody knows that we won the agreement. And then it passes through our operations team, and our operations team is all discussing, okay, what's the billing preference here? How do we handle this? Have we gotten the deposit? And then it hits our service team, and our service team starts taking care of the client. And, I'm looking right now at our statistics. We probably send back and forth in the company about 3,000 to 4,000 messages amongst 20 people. And I would say that the 6-person service team probably accounts for half of those. And they are just communicating on every tiny issue that happens. And one person goes out into the field to deal with things. And, even though we're incredibly standardized and we've got everything documented, that one person is able to ask a question like, hey, guys, I'm seeing this right here. Has anyone ever seen that? And they kind of Slack the whole team, and the whole team, everybody sees it instantly. And if someone has something to add, they're like, oh, yeah, when I saw that last time, this is what I did. And so now this institutional knowledge that historically has lived in one person's head, or maybe 2 or 3 people who are with a company for a long time, is now immediately augmented by this platform where everybody can kind of dump this institutional knowledge that is their brain into this kind of communications platform. So Slack has been game changing for us, and I highly recommend that everybody take a look at it. But the other one that we use, and this is where we get this discussion of tickets all the time, is Zendesk. So we've had a ticketing system for 5 or 6 years, and it is something we use in all aspects of our service on health and technology. And every client knows that there is one phone number and one email address to call and email into with regards to any service issue, right? It's in our contracts. It even says we will not guarantee you our response times if you do not email this address. The only way we can guarantee this response time to you is if you email this address or call this number. And so that number, we use Ring Central for our phone system. It rings everybody's phones in the office and their cell phones. And then Zendesk hits the whole group, and we track every ticket. And every ticket gets properly categorized by type. Is it a computer issue, a mobile issue, a control issue, audio, video? Is it a hardware, a software, or service issue? Did it require an on-site visit or not? It gets assigned to somebody within the team. It has a due date in order to make sure that nothing ever slips through the cracks. And we probably, in fact, I can look at our most recent statistics. Our most recent statistics will show that, we get about 100 emails and phone calls every single day. Actually approaching 200 right now across 50 families. These aren't necessarily new issues, but they are, back and forth going on. And every week we probably get 100 new issues. Right. So there's 100 new issues every week, and every single day we're probably communicating a couple hundred times back and forth on all of these various issues. And at any given time, we have about 100 open issues that we're dealing with. And this is for only 50 families, right? That's it. It's crazy. And you can either look at that and say, wow, that company sucks. They have a lot of service issues all the time. Or you can say, wow, once you make this as easy as OneVision has made it to simply call, say one little thing, and know it gets resolved, people start calling about all of their little tech issues. And all of these little things start coming out of the woodwork. And you start realizing, wow, tech actually is a big pain in the ass.
Oh, yeah.
Zendesk is critical to our ability to stay on top of that. It's impossible otherwise. And then the third one is IHEG. We would not be able to kind of turn that corner, turn that page, and get proactive if we didn't have IHEG monitoring all of our clients' technology. Unfortunately, IHEG is a little bit like, it's a chicken and egg game. You need to have a service team and a service culture to really take advantage of IHEG, but it's also really hard to do excellent service and be efficient at it if you don't have something like IHEG that lets you proactively address these things and remotely address most of the issues. So it's really it's all these factors contributing to create a service atmosphere and kind of a service platform.
Love it. It's great stuff. And, we talked about before the show that Seth and I have a mix of people in our audience, and a lot of them are integrators. A lot of them are enthusiasts. And I think this stuff is relevant no matter what, facet of the smart home and home technology you sit in. I think, like you said, technology is a pain. And you guys have kind of figured out how to position yourselves in a really unique way that I think is something that everyone should be thinking about if you're involved in any way in home technology or technology in general. So we're kind of running up against our time here, Joey. It's been a great conversation. I'd like to sort of move into the conclusion here. Again, zooming back out and asking you sort of a high level question. If you take a look, kind of grab your crystal ball here real quick and look 5 years from now and tell us, what, in your opinion, a successful home technology integration firm looks like.
Well, I think that you need to take out two of those words. It's not home and it's not integration, it's technology. Right. So I think that in the next several years, you're going to see the successful firms are, technology service providers, technology management professionals, and they have successfully merged the concepts of IT and AV, no longer, limit themselves to one discipline or the other. And are also no longer focused on the project that is a smart home, and instead are focused on the ongoing service, and just recognize that a project just happens to be this thing that comes up once in a while and needs to be dealt with. But otherwise, the relationship in the business and the client is to be had in all of the service that happens after the fact, after the home and leading up to the next home, and in the day-to-day experiences. So I think that's what a successful technology manager looks like 5 years from now. I'm not quite sure that dare I say something as crazy as I'm not sure there will be such things as successful home technology firms in 5 years. Maybe it's like 15 years, but I have a feeling that the industry is definitely changing.
I would definitely agree with you there. It has been changing and will continue to change, and we're seeing everything just move in a direction that I feel has happened before with IT. I mean, it looks exactly the same, and all the things that you've outlined are exactly what I see successful IT firms doing these days for business, not necessarily for the home, but on the massive business scale where they we were talking about somebody I was working with IT last week, Jason, and everything that Joey's talking about today. This guy does. He keeps 6 iPhones in his office, because if somebody drops and breaks one at this one client that he has, he's got to run out there that day and swap the phone out.
we do that across the board for all the
There you go.
We've got spare iPhones, spare MacBooks, spare processors, spare everything, spare cases, right? Because it's all about the experience. When the client wants a new iPhone because they shattered one or because one got stolen, we found that every time we were delivering a new iPhone, we were like, oh man, we forgot your case. So we started tracking what's their favorite case, and we just have spares of those. I mean, I agree with that approach. It's important.
Well, this is all good stuff, and I think you and I could sit here and talk about this for hours to come on, but we're running a little short on our time this week. And Joey, just want to thank you for coming on the show. And if somebody wanted to reach out to you and connect with you, how would they go about doing that?
So I'm pretty findable on LinkedIn or on our website, and I think either of those, if you're going to have my name listed right next to the podcast, then that's probably the easiest way to find me.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thanks again, Joey, for coming on. We really do appreciate your time. I think it was a great conversation, and we look forward to kind of keeping an eye on OneVision moving forward and seeing what you guys are up to. So thanks again, and we'll let you go.
Sounds good. Thanks, guys.